Hey guys, Justin here. Welcome to today's video. I'm still injured, and as such I decided to make this video about 5 things you can do as a guitar player if you have wrist injuries and how to deal with the situation. I have scapholunate dissociation. Scapholunate dissociation. Let me say that a bit more slowly. Scapholunate dissociation. It basically means that the central ligament in my wrist tears up and it sometimes dissociates. So instead of one long, think of a cable, right? Sometimes the cable snaps, and that causes quite a lot of pain in my wrists. And I used to have bilateral scapholunate dissociation, which means that both my wrists would have the same kind of wrist pain. 10 years ago, when I was still in the army, I had first injured these wrists, and when I went through the MRI scan, the doctor told me that I have 10 years before I will develop wrist arthritis. It was a major bummer for me because playing guitar and being part of a team, a worship team, and playing music, well, it's basically my whole life, and I had to do things to change change it around. So I'm going to share 5 things that I did, and hopefully those of you guys who have a chronic injury like this, or those of you guys who just got injured, I hope this will bless you and encourage you that this is not the end. It's been 10 years, and my wrists may hurt every now and then. I may injure them periodically every now and then, but I am a testimony that God is indeed good, and He preserves His people for His purposes. So tip number 1, what can you do when you have an injured wrist? The first thing you can do is wear a wrist guard. Now, there are several on the market, and depending on what you get, you can opt for something like as simple as this. What this does is that you can stretch an elastic band across the affected area and basically form that little protective barrier here so that the wrist doesn't ambulate as much. And what this stabilizes the wrist so that you don't injure it as you move along. And you have to wear it the whole day, so it doesn't feel very comfortable after a while, but you have to power through it, and you have to wear this and to make sure that you don't get injured. Sometimes I used to have to wear this to sleep because that's when I'm the most vulnerable to injury. I wouldn't know when I'm sleeping with my wrist. I wouldn't know when I'm accidentally leaning on it or something in my sleep. So if you do have to wear a guard, you can get something like this, which is reversible, because you can take this out. You can remove the wrist. Remove the wrist. No, I don't want to remove the wrist. You can change. This is a reversible guard, which means that you can wear this on your right wrist as well if you injured it. The other type of guard that you can use is, I have another one here. This one here is a bit more serious. This one actually has a metal plate running in the center of this guard, and what this does, and interestingly, this is the guard that I used when I had my right wrist scapholunate dissociation. When I had the right wrist injury, I would wear this way. So, and of course you can tighten up the guard here, and what this does is that this is a much more permanent and more stable guard, because this metal bar here prevents your wrist from making any ambulation in this direction. So this is a bit more serious, and when I wore this, the first few times I wore this, people called me Robocop in church because this does look like a Robocop glove. I've not used this for so long that the rubber has disintegrated, and I just got fluff everywhere on this table, and I gotta clean up. Tip number 2, consider loading down and playing with less gear as you head out to play for your shows, for your worship sessions and practices, what have you. Instead of bringing out your double electric case and bring out 2 electrics, instead of your Pedal Train Pro mothership of a pedal board, you may have to scale down and scale back. Instead of playing the giant pedal board, you might have to play with something a bit simpler like this, and this is the This is my pedal train. No, not pedal train. Excuse me. This is not a pedal train. This is my IK Multimedia iRig Pro interface and the blue board, which I can plug my phone into on this slot here. This little thing is so light, I can hold it in one hand and I can fit it into a backpack. I don't exactly have to bring a professional pedalboard case for this. So consider playing with a lighter load. Can you make do with one guitar? Can you make do with a small pedalboard? Can you make do with no pedals? Can you just make do with an amplifier? You might have to scale down. Tip number 3 is to modify your technique. This was a big one for me. I had to really learn how to play guitar in a different way. I used to be a very heavy picker, and I used to be a very aggressive player. I used to do heavy metal stuff, Dream Theater, John Petrucci. And I suppose being Petrucci influenced, the idea of playing the guitar at a much higher body angle wasn't foreign to me. In fact, that's the way that I play guitar now with my wrist injury. See, the thing is, you want to balance that angle. You want to have your wrist angle not do this. This happens when you play really low. Let's say if you have your strap really low. Now you might have to play your strap even higher. So have your strap at a higher angle. Lift the whole guitar up and see whether that helps your left hand be a bit better. I'm gonna put some footage of me playing the guitar with the John Petrucci level of coolness, as it were. It is not very cool looking to see you play guitar at really high. In fact, it's very nerdy, and my wife makes fun of me and laughs at me for playing guitar that way. But you don't have a choice. You have to get your wrist healed up, and one way to help in that process is to modify your technique. So play your guitar higher, see whether that helps in making it more comfortable. You also will have to change your technique. I have also changed the way I play the instrument in my left hand. I don't do crazy legato runs anymore. I have to do much shorter and much smaller scale fragments. So instead of those crazy stretches, the 3 or 4 or 5 fret stretches, I'm only really doing maximum 4 fret stretches, like those really scale fragments. These 3 fingers and these 3 fingers. Yeah, this looks pretty weird, but you know what I mean. My scale fragments had to be smaller because I didn't want to stretch the hand so much. Tip number 4 is to play guitars that are easier to play. You see, some guitars are a bit more ergonomically designed than others. Ibanez and Music Man guitars are by far the easiest ones that I've played so far. My JP6 by Ernie Ball is the easiest guitar to play, and that is my go-to guitar when I need my wrist injuries to heal up, because I can play the guitar really high, and that guitar's particular neck shape and particular body angle allows me to put the guitar on my body in such a way that it doesn't hurt my wrists, and I think that's very important. If you don't have these guitars, consider getting one second hand. This can be a temporary guitar as you heal up and go back to playing your 6 kilogram Les Paul or something. And that's an important thing too. I couldn't play my Les Paul, not because it weighed down on me as I played, but because I had to move the monster. My Les Paul is the heaviest of my guitars, and I injured my wrist when I instinctively reached out with my left hand to grab the neck and pull it off the rack, and I injured it that way because it's just so heavy that it immediately pulled on my wrist, and that injured it. So consider finding an ergonomically lightweight guitar, something like an Ibanez or an Ernie Ball, something that is easier to play. Bottom line is, find a guitar that's suited for your body type and for your wrist angle situation. Tip number 5, and this comes from a Christian: pray for your healing. Pray and ask the Lord to sustain your wrists and to pray for miraculous healing. Now, I may not be as charismatic as my brothers from Kingdom Invasion or something, but I do believe that God can heal, and I have experienced miraculous healing before. I need to give my testimony, and you may have heard this before, but I remember at a healing service, 2 of my brothers in church knew that I had wrist problems, and this was when both my wrists were really bad. So I think I was wearing both my guards at the church that day, so I really looked like RoboCop with 2 hands out in the picture. And they came out to me, they took my wrists and they held the wrists, and they prayed. They really prayed, and they sought the Lord, and they prayed and prayed. And as they were praying for healing, I could feel warmth, heat, energy that was emanating from my wrists. I never experienced this before. I was freaking out, and when they were done praying, when they said the amen, I felt as if my wrists were completely healed. And it was true. I didn't need the guards anymore. I took them off, and that was my first permanent healing of my right wrist. My right wrist doesn't hurt anymore. My left wrist, because I slept on it 3 weeks ago, this is why this one still hurts. But I'm seeking that healing again, because I believe God healed me once, and I believe that He will heal again. And I also believe that He can heal you. So if you are in need of prayer, and if you want someone to pray with you, you may not be a Christian, but that doesn't stop me from praying for you. So if you're not a Christian and you want someone to pray with you, I'll be very happy to do that. Pop me a message, comment down below, pop me a DM on Instagram or Facebook, and I'll be happy to pray for you, because I believe the Lord wants to heal you, and the Lord can heal you this day. Thanks for watching to the end. This is my video for 5 tips on how to deal with injuries. How do you deal with your injuries? Did I cover everything, and do you have other ways that you deal with a specific wrist injury? If you do, put them in the comment box. Let's start a conversation going. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. This is Justin signing off.